after 6, so we want to be respectful of time and get started. First of all, welcome. Thank you for coming to the 2023 Village of Wanakee President Candidate Forum Q&A. We're glad to have so many people here, and I want to thank our candidates for participating. Just some housekeeping details. We do have a moderator, Gail Bliss. She's from the Dane County League of Women Voters. So she will be the moderator for the questions throughout the evening. I also want to introduce Roberta Bauman. She is the editor of the Wanakee Tribune, and the Tribune is a co-host along with the Chamber of Commerce for tonight's forum. So thank you, Roberta, for helping me once again. I think this is about our 4th or 5th year of doing this. Some housekeeping details. Restrooms are here, located here or through the bar on the left side of the restaurant at the entrance. Please shut off your cell phones and your watches and anything that might ding or dang. We are taping tonight, and this will be shared through the Chamber of Commerce and the Wanakee Tribune along with the candidates. It'll be a link on YouTube. So give us a few days to get that out there. Am I missing anything else? Oh, the questions, just a little bit about the evening. So the candidates have been given 3 questions in advance that they will be asked each. And they'll have 2 minutes. And from there, it will be questions from you, the audience. We do ask that those questions get recorded on paper and either handed to myself or Roberta, and we'll be sure to get them to Gail. And then Gail will be asking the questions. Okay.
Ella,
yes.
this isn't going green.
You hold it for a little bit.
And no squeaking of the mics tonight.
We did have mic issues back in February, this is true. But we also had 7 candidates, so I think it was a little hectic. Did it not go on?
No, it's not.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll share this one and I'll get batteries in this one. Okay, well, with that, I want to introduce once again Gail Bliss from the Dane County League of Women Voters, and she'll take it from here. Thanks once again for participating.
Thank you, everybody. As Ellen said, I'm Gail Bliss from the League of Women Voters of Dane County. The election is April 4th, and voters will choose one of these candidates as village president. I want to welcome our candidates, Kristin, Runge, and Nila, Frye. We flipped we tossed dice, and Nila gets to answer the first question. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the Wanakee Tribune for sponsoring this forum, and thank Roberta Bauman for being our timer. And with that said, please hold your applause until the end of the program, and then we can clap for everybody about everything. I'll hand this over to Nila for the first question. Nila, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nila Frye, and I've been in I've been in Wanakee since 1977. In 1978, I worked on my first sidewalk committee, and it was a growing experience, and I guess I've been growing ever since. My husband and I moved here in the Labor Day weekend, 1977. We raised 4 sons here who graduated from Wanakee Community High School. And we continued living here. And over the years, I've served on many, many committees. In fact, there's so many that I couldn't even name them all when I first tried to be appointed for office. From the Sidewalk Committee, I was on the Personnel Committee. I've worked on Parks and Development, Wanafest Publicity Committee, Citizens Study Committee for a high school, Present Public Works Committee. I'm the chair of the Public Works Committee currently, Police Committee, Fire Committee, Board of Appeals, Housing Task Force, which I worked on with Kristin, EMS Memorial Project Assistant. My husband was on EMS for 30 years, so I think I gained a lot of knowledge through hearing him and contributing to the service on the EMS. I would volunteer when he volunteered, and I would also serve training meals. I love Wanakee, and I've served on many committees. I believe in transparency and communication, and I think working together, we can all work together and be part of the solutions in Waunakee, and that's it.
Thank you, Nila. I'm Kristin Runge. I have lived here since 2009. Prior to that, we lived in Nila, Wisconsin. My husband, Troy, and I have raised 2 children here who both graduated from Waunakee High School in 2019 and 2016, respectively. Prior to living in Nila, we were in Atlanta for a few years. Prior to that, UW Stevens Point. I am actually from Sauk Prairie, so I'm one community down the road. And the first half of my childhood I spent in Sheboygan. I am very excited to be here tonight and looking forward to talking to you all. A little bit more about me. I work for UW Extension, and I'll go into that for our third question today. So I'll go into that a little bit later. As far as community experience is concerned, I have been served on the Board of Trustees. I facilitated the Waunakee Housing Task Force. I've served as chair of the Finance Committee. I serve on the Community Development Authority and the Police Commission in the past as well. So I hope tonight that you treat this like a job interview, that you ask us the questions that you want to know about us, that you put some hard things to us, that you really learn how we might approach the job the same and how we might do things differently. And thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to Roberta and Ellen for organizing this. Thank you, Gail, for being here to moderate. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. We'll start with Kristin for second question. What are your top 3 priorities that you would work on as president?
So top 3 priorities. We have a lot of opportunity here in the village. We're in a very lucky position. We've been managed extremely well over the past several generations, really. When you look at decisions that were made 10, 20, 30 years ago, there's a lot of wisdom that went into giving our community the assets and the opportunities that we have today. So looking to the future, how can we best position the community? 3 broad categories that I would try to work on. The first one is to balance and grow the tax base. When we compare our community to other communities of similar size around the state, we're a little housing heavy when it comes to our property taxes. So anything that we choose to do as a community right now is weighing heavily on property owners as opposed to a more balanced business base across retail, services, and light manufacturing. So that's the first thing I would do. Second, within that category, I think we need to look at providing some needed retail and services. We've expanded as a community the services that we use. Oftentimes we're leaving the community to go for. And I think we need to look at diversifying in order to allow us to diversify the tax base. Second broad thing I'd work on is I think we need to continue to provide strong support for our community institutions and our anchor institutions. So our EMS, our fire department, our police, our libraries, the institutions that make it possible to live here and have a high quality of life are all supported by both our tax dollars, but also by the time that we commit to those organizations through serving on the library board or serving as the fire department. Along with that, 30 seconds left, so third one then, is I think we need, I could go on forever and I often do, so I'll see that sign tonight a lot. Third thing is we need to foster a welcoming community. Waunakee is a community that does welcome people well. New people integrate with longtime families here. It's a wonderful community to move to. And I think we need to communicate effectively that Waunakee is for everyone, regardless of your background, regardless of your creed, regardless of your outlook on life. You've got a home here and we're excited to have you as our neighbors.
I probably ran over. Okay. First thing I would work on in the village is infrastructure and service. We have had in the past, and we still have, a great EMS, fire, and police service, but we have to continue working on that so that we have continued service, quality service in the future. Roads and utilities are part of infrastructure, and there's always needs for those 2 things. Housing needs. We have been building a lot of housing, but we need housing, different types of housing. We need some barrier-free housing, varying price housing. We need different types of housing. We need duplexes and single-family homes and condos. So those are a couple of ideas for different types of housing. And voice of the people. I've worked hard on getting the voice of the people heard, transparency. These are things that I feel that all governments need to be, all citizens and governments need to work together So, and people need to be vigilant to continue being heard at all levels of government. But local government is the one place where your voice can be heard the loudest, and I want to hear all your voices. I will not only hear them, but I will respond to you and listen to you as I already have for 3 years. Thank you.
Okay, you keep it, Nila,
Okay.
because we switched the order. What work experience or business acumen would you bring to this position as president? And before you start to answer, Ellen, I could use the rest of the questions pretty soon.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, I've been a child care provider for over 40 years. During those 40 years, I'm the person who wears all the hats. I know how to juggle. I put together a budget every year. I work with the daycare parents. I take care of the children. I'm a one-man show with the help of my husband once in a while. Community service I have done above and beyond, I think, and it wasn't because I was building a resume. It was because I love Wanakee. Everything I've done, I never knew I really did until I decided to try to be appointed to office the first time, and it took a lot of research to figure out what I'd done over the years. I love my neighbors and I love Wanakee, and I want to continue doing the things that I've already done. I worked hard to get citizen members back on the finance committee. At one point they were removed. I worked to get public comment during meetings to go from 1 minute to 3 minutes, because I think it's very important and vital for citizens to have a voice in our government. And 1 minute just wasn't enough. I tried to do it too many times over the years and it just didn't work. And I want all of us to work together to find solutions to the issues that are existing in Wanakee and the ones that will come up that we aren't even expecting. We don't know what's going to come up in the future. And those are the things that it's going to take everyone working together to come up with those solutions. Thank you.
Professional experience. So I started out my career, I've dedicated my career since the early 1990s to serving the public. I started out by working for the American Cancer Society, which played a pretty pivotal role in my childhood and my young adulthood years, doing fundraising and healthcare outreach. After that, I went to work for the American Red Cross in Atlanta, Georgia, where I served with a team that did blood drives and blood collections with the major metropolitan organizations in the Midtown area. After that, went back to graduate school and got a degree in marketing at Georgia State, thinking I was going to move from nonprofit into for-profit, and that lasted not at all. I went into education instead and worked at UW-Fox Valley and later at UW-Madison as a lecturer in business and economics and agricultural communication. For the last 8 years, I've been working as an economic development specialist for UW Extension, and I work with communities like ours across the state on issues like housing, childcare, downtown and business district development, balancing their tax bases, and other issues that they identify as critical to both their community and their economic vitality. I co-lead the Community Vitality and Placemaking team, which is a statewide team that is designed to create environments that are engaging and healthy over the long term for business owners. I work with the Entrepreneurs of Color support team, which is designed to provide on-roads to entrepreneurial access for entrepreneurs of color, specifically in the Milwaukee to Fox Cities region. And then once a year for a quarter term, I serve as the Entrepreneurs in Training mentor for people who are leaving prison and looking to, or have had justice-involved life, as we say, and are looking to start businesses as a way forward. I'm also the principal investigator for the Economic Development Administration University Center at the Division of Extension as well. So my life has been dedicated to community development and economic development, and I really love to put those skills to work here as president. So,
The next question starts with Kristin. Thank you both for your service on the Community Development Authority. What do you see as the most positive outcome from the CDA effort, and how do you plan to measure the effectiveness of that outcome? In 1 minute.
in 1 minute, that's an impossible task for me. I think the Housing Betterment Fund, which we have just recently articulated and is going up to the board for a vote, is probably the most significant achievement. It takes TIF and TID dollars when we extend them. We're not automatically extending them. When we extend them for a year, we'll be able to use those dollars to support seniors in remaining in their homes, supporting people who are in homes that are older and need repair, and fixing those homes with some dollars that we're reinvesting into the community. There's a lot of great things that happen from the CDA, but in a minute I'm going to pick that one as my favorite.
I agree. The Housing Betterment Fund is what we've accomplished in the year that I've been on the committee. Actually, it took longer than that because they were working on it for a very long time. And I think to determine the success will be to see how many people actually use it and how we get the information out so that people can access it. That's how I would measure the success of it.
Okay, thank you. So Nila, you start with this question. In this challenging economy and trying to recover from the pandemic, how do you think that the village can help Wanakee businesses?
I think we've already helped Wanakee businesses during the pandemic. We did a Get Out and Try Wanakee campaign. The chamber already receives finances from the village. We used to have a room tax, but the room tax really isn't coming in right now. But the chamber still receives funds. We have many things going on in the community that the chamber does, but as far as I know, every time the chamber has come to the village and asked for something, we've worked with them to see that their needs are met. One of the things that's ongoing is the use of the depot. The chamber uses the depot on an ongoing basis at a minimal cost, so they have a permanent home. And I think that speaks a lot for Wanakee that our historical building is being used by the chamber. Thank you.
I agree with those things. We had at work, we had a summit in the northern part of Wisconsin, a Northwoods Economic Development Summit, and Neil Kashkari, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, was there. And the thing that he really talked about that hit home to me is our tight labor market. Right now, one of the things that, at least back in October, one of the things that he felt was standing in between us, the U.S., and a recession is increasing wages. So that's good that the upward pressure on wages is affecting us and keeping us out of recession, but it really is negatively affecting a lot of our organizations here. So when we're looking at workforce development over the next 3 to 4 years, how can we get more workers into the community? How can we fill some of our rosters at our employers that are understaffed right now? How can we maybe work with a BID district, a business improvement district, to provide transportation, perhaps a van instead of a Madison Metropolitan, in order to get workers from Madison where they're available out to Wanakee. So I agree, but also workforce development I think is going to be key over the next few years.
Okay, Kristin.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
It's 1 minute for these answers?
That's what I was told.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to.
If you guys want to go to 90 seconds, how are you feeling?
No.
1 minute?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll keep it with 1 minute. Yeah. My apologies.
Yeah. Okay. The next question. The recent train derailment in Ohio is an issue. Are there toxic chemicals traveling through Wanakee? Can a derailment happen here? What can be done by the village, specifically the president, to assure that this does not happen here?
Great question. It's an unfortunate situation in Ohio. Our trains run from one specific location in Rock Springs here primarily down through. There are occasionally different elements on here. I think it's a combination of working with the Department of Transportation to ensure that we know what's going through, when it's going through. The second, that the companies that are transporting materials are complying with the laws and the regulations. And then third, that if something does happen, we have a solid safety plan. Working with our EMS, working with our fire department specifically in advance, as well as the county organizations that would be involved in a cleanup. So having a good crisis plan in place prior to something like that happening and knowing what would be required of us if that happened.
I think pertaining to this, I don't know the answer, but what goes through my mind is it may be beneficial to ask fire, EMS, and police to work on I don't know what it's called. It's like a practice run so that they can get trained in these matters. EMS, fire, police have constant training, but I don't know if they've done specifically one pertaining to this. I know they've done them at the school for different things, et cetera, et cetera. But this may be something that we could improve on and suggest that the 3 units work on this together.
Okay, the next one, starting with Nila. What do you think of the use of TIF funding as a development tool?
I think originally when TIF funding started that it was a good tool because it was to be used to improve blighted areas. I think unfortunately it is being overused. It affects the village of Wanakee, the school district, Dane County, MATC, and look around Dane County. Everything is growing, everything's developing. I don't know why we're using TIF as a tool as much as we are. It seems like there's enough people that want to, or enough businesses that want to come in here, that they come in with less TIF usage. That's it.
I'm agnostic on TIF. I don't feel strongly one way or the other. I think every program or every organization that falls under the rules that allows TIF deserves to have their proposal be evaluated on its own merit. It does save us money in some instances. The road reconstructions outside of the Presbyterian Church, and that's not the specific road, but I should be referencing it, losing the address in my mind, was in part funded by TIF funding. So there are times when it really does benefit it. I've seen it used very well, I've seen it used poorly, and when it's used poorly, it can really be detrimental. The way that we run TIF here as a pay-go, so we only pay as we go along, is one of the safest forms and the best forms of TIF. So again, I'm agnostic on it. It really needs to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, Kristin, you start this one. Wanakee homeowners bear most of the cost of government. What will you do to lighten the tax load?
We really need to diversify our tax base. When we bring in retail services that we need, those organizations, if they're building buildings, if they're constructing new light manufacturing facilities, they pay taxes. And that's taxes that we're not paying as homeowners. So diversifying the tax base that way is probably the primary way that we're going to be able to take the load off of our homeowners.
I agree with Kristin. We need light manufacturing, and part of that would be to have manufacturing that's going to pay a living wage, that will pay good benefits and keep their employees and not have them rotating in and out of the employment position all the time. Some businesses seem to do that, and if we bring businesses to Wanakee, we need to have them do what's good for Wanakee, and that's to keep good employees here and pay them a good amount so that they can be self-sufficient. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any thought to how to have more liaison with the school board regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I would like to see work with the school board. I think the school has been trying to work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would like to see the village do more. Working together, I think it can be done. Somebody, probably me, would need to go and talk to the administrator, and from what I understand, our administrator will be leaving soon. That's been with the school for years. So I guess it would be up to me and the staff to go and say, you know, what can we do together? Let's come up with a plan that will promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and help everyone feel included in the community.
When we established the housing task force, Sharon Lesberg, who is our UW Extension county educator, and I sat down with Chris Zellner and Todd Schmidt, and together we came up with a grid of all the organizations that we wanted involved in the housing task force and all of the different demographic groups we were trying to hit. And we had on there, you know, a minimum of one representative from the school board and from the school district. When about a year and a half later, when I was on the board and they formed the DEI committee at the school district, We were invited to apply, but we weren't guaranteed a seat, and I don't believe anybody did apply from it. So I think when we're working with the school district on issues like DEI or housing or anything that really affects us as a community, because what happens at the high school happens in our homes, it happens in our streets. We need to have representatives across all of the issues from both the village and the school board so that we're working together and solving problems as a single community and not two separate governmental entities.
This is a related question. Can you share what you have done to foster equity and diversity in your community or your professional work?
Yeah. So I've been involved in equity and diversity issues and inclusion issues for a long time. When I began working with the American Red Cross in 1992 in Atlanta, I was the regional representative for the For the Love of Us blood drives, which was designed to increase platelet apheresis and bone marrow registrations among the African American community members in Atlanta. When we moved to Nila, Wisconsin, we had a very diverse school, diverse religiously, diverse racially, diverse in terms of income, and post 9/11 we had some incidences that led me and a group of parents to start what we called Culture Quest, which was designed to inform our teachers and our students about what was happening on the job. I'm one of the founders of the Entrepreneurs of Color support team that, again, as I said before, works with entrepreneurs in the Milwaukee to Fox Valley region that are African American. I've also instituted some hiring practices when we're interviewing graduate research assistants and looking for graduate researchers that increases the number of people from diverse backgrounds that apply for our jobs.
Thank you. My faith teaches me that I am not to judge anyone, and I try to live that every day in my life. I learned a long time ago that you shouldn't judge somebody else until you've walked in their shoes. And that's something that sometimes it's hard to remember and it's hard to live by, but I'm getting better at it, and I hope that the community as a whole will grow toward this, understanding that we're all different and we all need to come together and work on working together and inclusivity so that there aren't the issues, some of the issues that we have in Wanakee at this time.
Okay. Our next, oops. Gotta turn the mic back on. I've been turning it off so it doesn't do feedback, but when I'm talking, I gotta turn it on. What will be your approach to bringing new, different, and diverse voices to the village board, committees, and commissions?
I've been thinking about the committees and commissions. If I get elected, it's been a concern of mine, and I'm taking it very seriously. And it's not because I think I'm going to get elected to the board necessarily, but it's because I want to be prepared, because there's a short turnaround time if that should happen. So I will be looking throughout the community, as I have been, to fill those positions the best I can. All positions are not open. Many of them are on 2-year terms, and when you look and evaluate the numbers, there's very few positions that will actually be filled. We're figuring it out. So.
We're going to get it before the night's done. So the passing of the microphone is the hardest thing about tonight, isn't it? Invite, invite, invite. Those are the 3 rules. I used to be in volunteer recruitment when I was with the Cancer Society and the Red Cross. So going out into the community, finding people who have maybe not seen themselves as part of local government is the first thing that we should probably be doing if we want a more diverse group. Second thing, I like the idea, and I've instituted this with a lot of the communities I work with, where you have a grid and you look at who is serving on your boards and are they representative of every population in the community. Third thing we've done in a lot of communities, we've brought outsiders in and we've told them to shop the community, tell us who lives there. And if they are identifying populations that the community members don't necessarily see every day, they notice a ethnic grocery store, they notice a group of kids that those are kind of bringing to attention who the community should always be looking to incorporate. So again, inviting, making sure you're being really thorough and having representation across all of groups, and just encouraging people to see themselves in local government if they haven't seen themselves there before.
Okay, what is something you have seen that needs to be changed in the village operations and budget?
Oh, something that needs to be changed. That's a hard one. We have when I compare the way our budget and our operations looks compared to other communities, we have an outstanding record of careful budget management, of really solid fiscal health that is we're inheriting, and we should be very fortunate to have that. So when we're talking about things that are changing, I think the move to have citizen representation on the finance committee, which I think, Nila, you were partially responsible for that, was a really good move. The openness with which we have it, we have semi-regular budget and finance meetings. I think more finance meetings, perhaps annual meetings that are a little bit more well attended among community members might be helpful, and part of that might be inviting community members in to attend those things.
One of the things that I would like to see the village work on is getting the agenda packets out earlier for all of us. I requested that they come out on Wednesdays, and Carla has done a great job at working on that the best she can. I would like it to be more regularly happening, and also I would like to see, I lost my train of thought. I would like to see the Finance Committee have some say in checks and balances with this Finance Committee. So if employee sees something that they're questioning, they don't necessarily have to go to their employer, but they could go to the person on the Finance Committee who's been specified to look at the issue and just check it out, because sometimes things happen that you never want to happen. I'm not saying there's been any problems, but just the checks and balances.
Okay, the next one. Will we ever get a motel or hotel to hold conferences for large groups that the industrial park, etc., can use?
That's a good question. I had talked to Bill Fredericks, who is in charge of Public Works, the other day, and said, is anything happening with our current hotel? And he said, no, not much. And so I would love to see it, but that I don't know if it's something that we go out and recruit for, because I think there's other things that Wanakee probably needs as much, if not more, than a hotel. Perhaps we could use another clinic here. There are other things that would be more of a priority. I've heard many people say they would like, because of their insurance, they cannot go to the clinic we have. They would like to see another clinic here. So those are, I'd rather put my effort into something like that than doing something that a businessman should do and come in and build a hotel.
So we can do a hotel study, or we can ask a hotel study to be done. The Holiday Inn that just went up out in Sauk started with work that Bill Ryan, who is recently retired at UW Extension, and I did with the Chamber of Commerce out in Sauk, looking at what are their needs. And they had what we call a hotel leakage, where people are going to weddings and whatnot at the Dorf House and in the country club in Sauk, but sleeping elsewhere. So they were leaking those dollars, as we would say. We undoubtedly have the same thing that's happening here, and we can do a study like that, or we can highlight our need for it. The extent to which a company wants to build here versus build, the worst is when it's right outside our tax area. You think that could have been 40 feet more and we would get it. So we could definitely do that. But I also agree with Nila, there are a lot of other needs that we have, and I think it's a case of clearly articulating to the world what we need and what we're willing to support as consumers, and hoping that private entities step up.
Well, this sort of ties into the next question. What is the most important issue in Wanakee, and how would you handle it?
The most important issue in Wanakee and how we would handle it. The one that's on my mind, and there are a lot of important issues in Wanakee, so if we're picking just one, the one that I have in mind is the $175 million plus school referendum. We were excited to pass that. It's going to be great to have these wonderful new schools. The only way a school district can grow referendums or to grow revenue is to increase taxes. So if we don't want our taxes increased, that means that we really need to think hard about how we're growing our tax base in a way that creates a community that we like and preserves our character and supports our school and is a place we're happy to come home to. For me, that's the thing that I think about most often as potential president.
My concern is the fire and safety, they're changing. And for years, we've had volunteers system, and we have to, I'm on the fire committee, and I've been hearing that, you know, we need to do something. We aren't getting the recruitments that we used to. So if any of you want to recruit, go to the, join the fire department, you're welcome to do so. But they were volunteered for so long, and it'll be a difficult transition if and when it happens. I don't know when it'll happen, but we need to start planning for that. And it's going to be difficult because we've had very good volunteers for a very long time. And to go from volunteer to something else will be a difficult process for all.
Okay. What do you think has been the top initiative that outgoing Village President Chris Zellner has done? I hope I got Chris's name right.
Would you repeat that, please?
What do you think is the top initiative that outgoing Village President Chris Zellner has done?
I think the top initiative that he did, it was started by somebody else. John Lobmeyer started the process along with the library board to build a new library. That was a huge initiative. Chris and the board brought in stakeholders and met with them and got a lot of people involved in contributing to the library. The library will be great for us well into the future. It was a great project. It remains a great project, and it will be a great project for years to come.
Yeah, that is certainly, that's a gift to the generations right there. That's one of our crown jewels. So I'm going to build on that. I'm going to say yes, and our budget is in great health. We have had a growth that's been managed in such a way that I think we're all really proud of the community that we have. When we look at how our parks, our trails, our neighborhoods have grown in beautiful, they're gorgeous places. So I think those are some of the things that we can be proud of. The ice rink is certainly another thing that I think that we have a lot to be thankful for, that we've got an asset like that here. So there's quite a lot I think that we could do. The relationship that he maintained with the school district, a great relationship that we've got with our institutions, is also fantastic. He's been a great president.
The first part of this is rhetorical. How many people of color are present here tonight? What can Waunakee do to reflect the diversity of the rest of the world?
That's a great question. So this is a national issue. We're not the only community that looks around and says we just don't look like the rest of America. So there's a movement called the Welcoming Movement that is being started in a lot of extension programs across the nation, and a lot of community development organizations other than extension are working on it. And it's a process that a community can go through where it does a self-audit of what is it doing that makes it a welcoming community, what is it not doing that communicates that maybe it's not as welcoming as it wants to be. So one of the things, if you look on my website, I want Waunakee to become the first welcoming certified community in the state. That would be a self-directed, self-studied process where we would start to explore some of these questions and ask, how can we as residents and institutional members and organizational members kind of communicate who we are and maybe change some of the ways we're doing things so that we do achieve a population that looks a little bit more like the rest of the state or the rest of the nation.
I think that we need to make those feel comfortable who are here so that they will say, come to Waunakee to live. If other people aren't comfortable here, they aren't going to say that. Also, through hiring practices, I don't know how many businesses attract people of color. All of those things together, a little here and a little there adds up in a community. And we can be very welcoming. We can, do a program like Kristin's talking about. But word of mouth, I've learned over the years, is very powerful. So if we have happy residents here who are minorities, they will let others know and others will come.
Okay. How do we promote the voice of our younger new families? They seem to be too busy to be involved. But that they need to be aware of what is happening in our community? How can we improve avenues of communication?
Well, I think it was last weekend I attended a meeting. It was very informal. It's coffee time at the library. I've attended 2 of those. The second one was there were a lot of people there, a lot of children, young families, and I think if we have more events where the community is invited and it's not a formal thing. You just come and have a cup of coffee at the library or at the park, and people just start to talk and communicate and let each other know what's going on in the community. Again, word of mouth is a big thing. I know social media is, but sometimes social media isn't quite, it shows partiality. So just get out and talk and become a community through actually getting off that social media and coming and talking with your neighbors rather than texting.
Okay.
Okay. I think I should, yeah. All right, that great answer. So you go where they are. And you make sure that when they come to where we are, that we're set up to accommodate children. So daycare or childcare at night meetings. If we're having meetings during the day, we need to be aware that parents are working and probably can't take off work. So we need to continue our tradition of having meetings at night where parents can attend if they are. We should be at the PTO meetings. We should be at the football games. We should be wherever young people are with their families so that they know us and they can relate to us. Office hours at the library on a Saturday afternoon. When parents are coming in to check out books and their child is occupied and perhaps there are members of the village board that are there, are great ways to do it. So we can't expect them to come to us. We also can't expect them to serve when their children are very young, but we need to build those relationships so that when their children are in high school and graduating, they know they've got an on-ramp to getting involved in government. But to the extent that we can involve them when they're younger, we need to accommodate their schedules and their locations.
Thank you. The next question, I would guess, came from one of our younger folks. What's your favorite restaurant in Wanakee?
My favorite, and the one I go to most often is Culver's, and I'm from Sauk City, so it's going to be Culver's. Take Culver's off the table. I love the Legion fish fry. That is like asking me which child is my favorite. So I love them all. But I will say, frequency, it's Culver's, McDonald's for their coffee. I love Lone Girl. I love Rex's. The prime rib here is amazing. Okay, now I'm hungry. Your turn, Nila.
Okay, the place that I keep going to, and it's a place where my family would go after wrestling matches or soccer games, is Wanable. I feel that it's an atmosphere where you can be comfortable having children there. The food is great. The company's always great. You always feel welcome. So I can't say enough about Wanable, but we have many places to choose from in town. And I can remember the day when we got GGO's Pizza. It was such a big deal. So we have come a long ways when it comes to restaurants and food in town.
Okay, you hang on to it. Do we have any more questions?
Can we add O'Malley's Farm Cafe to our list? Do we both Miss O'Malley? Who are Mrs. O'Malley?
Yes.
Yes. So show of hands. Yeah. Anybody else have anything?
Did you have to write them down?
Oh, did you have to write them down?
I didn't know there was an idea.
Should we write one down? Why? What?
Maybe
Okay, let's see now. I guess it's Nila's turn to start. What is your educational experience and how can that help Wanakee?
Okay, I'm a high school graduate, and most of my experience comes from caring for children for over 40 years. I've had continuous ongoing education pertaining to childcare. And actually, when you take care of children and you become part of the family, and the family becomes part of your life, and it's an ongoing experience. A big part of my education has been serving on all the committees that I've served on throughout the village. You can't sit on or work on a committee without learning. And if you are sitting on a committee and not learning, that is something that I, as president, would probably take care of. Or if you aren't attending the meetings, it's important that you attend the meetings. So, because I have a huge work ethic, and with that work ethic, I want people, myself and people, to work for the betterment of Wanakee together. So if you're assigned on a committee, I would expect you to be there. Thank you.
So I work with a lot of presidents and mayors across the state, and I will say this: you don't need. This is to my detriment to say this. You don't need a formal education to be a great president or be a great municipal leader. Many of the people I work with in this role have done an outstanding job and have a high school education or a technical education. Some of them not even graduated from high school. For me, my diploma for high school was from Sauk Prairie High School. A bachelor's in communication arts with an emphasis in public relations from UW-Stevens Point, master's of science and marketing from Georgia State University, and a PhD in agricultural communication / life sciences communication / mass communication. It's all one program, 3 different names, from UW-Madison. So some say I went to school too long.
Oh, this is an interesting question. For both of you, what do you think the biggest differences in your background is?
No, I'm very.
That's a great question. Nila grew up where my dad grew up, and my grandparents grew up. So we both have roots in the Viola, Richland Center, Richland County community. I think we share a lot of the same values. I enjoyed tremendously serving on the board with Nila and having Nila on the housing task force and working with her in those. Biggest difference, Nila's lived here longer than I have. When you moved here in 1977, I was in 2nd grade in Sheboygan. So I was not in control of where we lived. We did love Wanakee whenever we came through to visit my grandparents in Spring Green. But I would struggle. We both got good hearts. We both love our community. I think we both raised great kids. We've got wonderful friendships that we've established here.
I think one of the differences is I had 8 siblings, and I don't think you had 8 siblings. Yes. So I grew up in a very busy household. I was the oldest of 9, so I was constantly on the go, and that's where I got my work ethic. I will say Kristin and I have worked together. We worked together in the housing task force. We did form a friendship. We had many conversations other than within the group when we were working on the housing task force. And yes, we do think a lot in the same way. I will say that either way, the village is going to have a woman president, and I think that's a history maker. And Ann Held is here, who was the 2nd village president woman. And give credit where credit is due. And so everyone, please get out to vote. It's very important. Every election is important. Don't ever let anyone think that any election is less important than another one, because that's absolutely not true. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? I wasn't here soon enough. I am the former village president, and I'd like to ask about safety. This is the biggest concern in Wanakee that I see right now. That we used to have a bus service from Wanakee, and it worked great. But somehow along the line, as times went on, others didn't like it and it went out. But I think a bus service here in Wanakee would help alleviate all this stupid traffic and all these people running across the street. They're going to get hit, there's no doubt about it. And I actually did see one that I was just a couple blocks behind where she walked across and she got killed.
Okay, I guess we have a question about safety, but I'm going to encourage anybody else who has other questions, if you need a piece of paper, wave to somebody.
Thank you very much.
We'll cut her some slack as former village president. Thank you for your question about traffic safety. Nila, that goes to you first.
I agree traffic safety is a concern throughout the village. And I don't know if you were talking about a bus that had existed, that went into Madison or was just in town. As far as getting a bus system between here and Madison, it would take a lot of work until Madison decides that they want to bring it out, because otherwise it'd be very costly. But I do see a need for that. Also, the roundabout is not a safe place to cross. And I know we had nothing to do with that, but it concerns me because I almost got hit there once. And one car stopped and the car beside it did not stop. So there are safety concerns in town. I've talked to Tim Saymons, the Economic Development Director, and Bill Fredericks, the Public Works Director, and they say that the state is concerned about traffic flowing through and not about pedestrians crossing. So I don't know what we can do about that, but it is a good issue that we need to put a lot of thought into.
Yeah, I agree. The roundabouts are a nightmare if you're a pedestrian. The main street, our main street is a state highway, or is a highway. So we have a limited ability in changing that with the Department of Transportation rules. But there is a guy named Jason Valerius, who I've worked with on other projects in other communities, that happens to be our planner. And he has some great ideas on how we can do road diets, how we can divert pedestrian traffic in other places. The trail system that we've put up does keep foot traffic off the streets to a certain degree. So as we expand that and we have more pedestrian pathways that are safe and completely isolated from the roads, I think we will hopefully see a decrease. But yeah, this is a big concern, and it should be for everybody. We don't want anybody to be unsafe on foot.
Okay. With all of the growth, how do you think the school district and the village can handle it?
We've handled it really well, and we are growing. It's something you always have to stay on top of. I think the constant communication between the school district and the village in terms of how many units of housing can we build, how many houses can we build up each year to provide a steady stream of students but not overwhelm the school district, and provide a slow and paced increase that of increased tax base and increased housing that supports what the school district needs in terms of revenue. It's one way to do it. The constant communication, a really strong working relationship between the two, and a good long-term plan that is articulated in our comp plan and also articulated in the school district's long-range planning are probably the ways that we really manage that.
I agree, and I also think it's growth, small growth, but it's also smart growth. We want it balanced, so that meaning we want some light manufacturing, we want a mixture in housing. We need the mixture in housing so that when we get employees here, they have a place to live and be part of Waunakee. So it's a pretty complex problem, but Waunakee's been working on it for a very long time, because as Waunakee grows, we just keep working on the problem. So Waunakee has done pretty well doing that, and I'm sure we will continue doing so.
Okay, I think this is the last question. There were a couple of questions for just one candidate or the other. I suggest that if you had a question for just one candidate, you talk to them after the program. How do you think the pandemic was handled, and how would you handle a similar event in the future?
Well, the pandemic was a very difficult time for all of us, not only us, but the entire nation and the entire world. And I think instead of dwelling on what we thought should have been done, or what could have been done, or what should be done now, we should focus on the present and move into the future. And we don't want to be divided, we need to be united. And to do that, hopefully, we've all learned things through the pandemic, and hopefully we can work on possibilities of how to handle a pandemic in the future, which I hope we never have another one, but I don't think that's the case, because roughly 100 years ago we had the Spanish flu.
I think we handled it, we were both on the board for part, if not all, of the pandemic. When I compare how we handled it to other communities, Waunakee handled it as well, if not better, than most communities across the state. And I think in part that's a testament to the fact that we do communicate with one another as a community. We're situated in Dane County. Our health decisions are made at a county level. And like all municipalities, we have to follow and had to follow what the county determined was the best course of action. The operating philosophy at the county level was to contain the possibility of spread from UW-Madison when you've got 30,000 students who are living on top of each other in dorms without adequate bathroom facilities for a pandemic. The worry about how the virus could have spread quicker and faster and in a much worse way than it did is really what drove a lot of the county level response. I think we were cheerful partners, and I think they listened to us when they could listen to us. Hopefully we never have to do that again. Hopefully we never have to do that again. Yeah.
Okay. Each candidate now has up to 2 minutes to sum up for the evening. So, Kristin?
All right. Okay. So we've got a decision ahead of us on April 4th. I hope that as you're approaching your decision, you're keeping in mind we're both good-hearted people, that we both have the best interest of our community at heart, and that whomever you choose, I think you're gonna end up with a woman president. You're gonna end up with somebody who really cares about the community. I ask you to vote for me. I do this for a living with communities across the state. I would love to be able to work intensely as president on the issues and the opportunities that we have here in Waunakee. We've got a great community and a bright future ahead of us. I will, if I am elected your president, listen to every single person that comes to my door. I will go and seek people out for their opinions. We will be looking to find ways to bring new people to the table, whether they are parents of young children or they are folks who didn't envision themselves in local government before having a role. We've got a wonderful community, and if we work together, I think we're going to continue to see ourselves grow and develop and really continue to create a wonderful place to live.
Well, I hope you get out and vote April 4th, and I hope you vote for me. For the last 3 years, I have been listening to you, I have heard you, I have responded to you, and I've worked and worked and worked, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. That's why I'm listening to all of you. Some of you have some of the great ideas that are questions that I bring to the board. So please consider me when you vote April 4th and get out and vote. Thank you.
Gee, I was going to say get out and vote too. If you turn that one off. Thank you to our candidates, Nila Frye and Kristin Runge. Thank you to our timer, Roberta Baumann of the Waunakee Tribune. And to our question collector, Ellen Scharf of the Waunakee Chamber of Commerce, and to the Tribune and the Chamber for sponsoring this forum. And thank you to you, our audience, for your interest in local affairs. The election is Tuesday, April 4th. Please vote. The League of Women Voters publication, Candidates' Answers, is available at public libraries, Capital Times distribution sites, and online at lwvdanecounty.org. There are some copies on the literature table at the back of the room. Candidates' Answers covers state, county, school board, and city elections. At this time, Candidates' Answers does not cover village and town contests, which is one of the reasons that we're very grateful that you come and listen to your candidates for village president. Both of the candidates also have literature on the back table. This concludes this forum. Please feel free to take time to check out the materials on the table, to talk to the candidates, the sponsors, and your neighbors. Thanks for coming. Good night.